It's a hugely complicated question, and I think you have to look at different points along the way since October 7th. We focused very hard when we were in office on trying to use our influence as best we could to minimize civilian harm and to make sure that people were getting what they needed to survive. And we were in an almost daily, not just conversation, but daily argument with Israelis over that and over the policies they were pursuing to deal with what's something they had to deal with, which was making sure that October 7th didn't happen again. The very first time, Preet, that I went to Israel after October 7th was 3 days later. And at that point in time, they were refusing any assistance of any kind to get into Gaza. There was basically a blockade on. And I spent 9 hours arguing with the prime minister, with the government, on the imperative of allowing humanitarian assistance to go into Gaza. I told them it was the right and moral thing to do, but even if they disagreed with that, it was the necessary thing to do strategically and legally. And ultimately, after a few days, I had an argument that lasted 9 hours. Ultimately, they agreed. President Biden came a couple of days later. They opened up the first crossing at Rafah. Stuff started to come in very small amounts and slowly, and we built on it, and we built up on it. And at the same time, we were also looking as carefully as we could at what their rules of engagement were. And at least early on, as we saw it and what was given to us, it was pretty close to the rules of engagement we would have imposed on ourselves. But then we were seeing a gap between the intent as expressed in those rules of engagement and the results that seemed to be happening on the ground. Now, this was a unique situation, especially in the first year or so, where unlike just about any other place I can think of, maybe with the exception of Iraq, you had an enemy group totally embedded with the civilian population, living among and underneath schools, houses, hospitals, mosques, making it extraordinarily difficult to deal with the group that had attacked you so viciously without harming those who were caught in the middle. And there was an ongoing, constant argument with them about the need to prioritize civilian safety as well as humanitarian assistance. Now, I think over the last 6 or 7 months, I'm no longer privy to the details, but at least as an observer, it seems that it's gotten worse in terms of what appears to be more indiscriminate firing in Gaza.
So Hamas has been a threat to Israel. Hamas is a terrorist organization. And in the short term, I understand why a lot of attention is being paid to the threat of Hamas. On the one hand, their abilities have been degraded monumentally. The leaders have been killed. On the other hand, as you point out, I think you said something like it's a fool's errand to eliminate them completely, to every last man.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But my question is, what about the threats from people who will harbor for a long time, if not the rest of their lives, an animosity towards Israel based on lots of things that have happened in Gaza, in the medium term and in the longer term? Do the people who advise Netanyahu, or the people who think about these things and construct models about these things, is there enough data to understand what those trends will be and what future terrorist organizations may arise because of the events that have unfolded in the last 2 years? Is that a clear question?
Yeah, Preet, I think it's an essential question, and I think it's almost inevitable just based on human nature. That,
is that risk discounted because it's a longer term, and is it discounted to the detriment of Israel?
I think it's discounted for a couple of reasons. It's discounted to the extent that the basic mindset, and it's really important to understand this, even if you disagree with it. The basic mindset is, particularly in that part of the world, and particularly from Israel's perspective, if you're not showing strength, if you're demonstrating weakness, if there's blood in the water and it's your blood, the sharks will always come to get you. And the only response from this perspective is to always show strength, If someone's coming at you, hit them in the face 10 times harder and don't stop until they're dealt with. That's the basic.
Right, but who do you hit in the face? Who are you hitting in the face?
So that's the problem is that's exactly right. First of all, you can't do that with every single militant. And to your point, given the horrors of the last couple of years, there's no doubt that you've got a whole new generation. But here's the thing, and this is where it's really complicated. You know, you already had a generation of people who, by what they were learning in school or by what they were hearing in a mosque, were continuing to be radicalized. And that's something that needs to be dealt with too. And again, if there's no alternative vision, if there's no alternative that actually promises a better life and promises to meet the basic aspirations of people, you can bet that they're going to go to the extremes. And whether it's Hamas 2.0 or maybe even worse, if it's possible to believe, a jihadist group of some kind, that's likely to be the future. So I think two things are incumbent. One is